Hey guys, so today I'll be doing a quick replay analysis of my own game. It's going to be in Diamond 3 MMR. I am currently in the midst of ranking an account up to Master Tier, and I want to go ahead and show a game I played in NA in around Diamond 3, Diamond 4, around that elo, where I ended up, pathing against the enemy jungler. I think I'm playing against a Mumu here, and I wanted to essentially just break down what you guys would want to do in your own games in MMRs where your teammates may not be able to assist you the best way possible. Anyways, so I'll tell you what I'm thinking right off the bat when let's catch a tab here, but I do tab kind of fast there, so we're gonna catch a tab in just a second. I usually do build Gale Force early on Kindred, mainly because the active is very good. It is against the enemy of Mumu, and let's see what the lanes are looking like. I'm sorry, I tapped very fast, so it's kind of hard to track. Okay, so right here, the lanes are going to be okay. So let's just do a quick analysis. So looking at the support to support matchup, it's a little bit twisted, the screen or whatever, so just bear with me here. So we know that Morgana has wave clear advantage over Nautilus, which means that wave 1 is most likely going to be in favor of Ashe, and I know that Veigar doesn't actually have the range to deal with Ashe immediately, and so wave 1 up until wave 4, and maybe even after wave 4, it is more beneficial for Amumu's lanes, and so these lanes do have very good setup. And then once they hit level 6, once Amumu's bot lane hits level 6, it's like a lot of CC. Looking on the other side, looking at my side, I have Veigar Cage. Veigar Cage early on is pretty okay, so I could path down early on if Veigar does end up hitting level 2. And then Nautilus obviously is also unlocked at level 2. So both bot lanes have a lot of CC and a lot of setup. It really just depends on which junglers can end up influencing a lane and how the lane state is actually played. However, we have to acknowledge that lane state is beneficial, is more favored towards the opponent's side because of the fact that they have Ashe and they have Morgana. Okay, so moving into mid lane, we have who is the mid lane? We have Jace into Victor, and again, Jace will get outscaled against Victor. Victor will outscale Jace very easily later into the game. However, Jace does win out early levels, he does win early trades, and he does win extended trades. Victor looking for short bursts trades, and then finally waiting to get his upgraded E, and so then eventually he wants to play levels 1 to like 7 relatively safe, and then if I can continue to provide him good lane states in mid lane, then once this guy gets his upgraded E and he can begin to one-shot the backline minions, then he can simply use his just his overall kit to consistently shove in Jace and simply deny him and get CS leads that way. Going up the top lane, we have Camille into Fiora. Again, a very volatile lane. Neither players are going to be running Ignite, so it is teleport, so we do want to be conscious of that. And then in addition, we also see that Camille is running Grasp against Fiora's Conqueror. And so again, if I can influence top lane and Camille does get a lead against Fiora, then Camille can definitely snowball the lead. However, if Fiora ends up getting a lead against Camille, then it becomes very hard for Camille to essentially come back into the lane. And into the game as well, because Camille is going to have a very, very hard time accelerating into the mid game and then even into the late game. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started and let's see what happens in the actual the match. So I'm not gonna okay, I start red here, and again I'm only gonna go over my early game pathing. Okay, not gonna go too deep into what happens after the game. So here I unmute my team's pings because apparently mute all mutes everything. Nautilus kites the thing for me a little bit, so I kind of say thank you for that, but a little unnecessary. And my kiting's not the best again here. I should be kiting it a bit better. And then here I'm dragging it essentially down to the south side, and the reason you want to drag the buff, I mean again the kiting is not the best, but whatever. You want to drag the buff down to the south side on the next camp that you want to take. If my goal is to end up doing a very high tempo clear, where I would end up going buff into Gromp top, then I actually want to clear and kite up to the north side. Now, we want to look at a few things, right? How do we want to play this lane? I have one of two routes I can most likely do here. I have one of three, and the third one is actually very incorrect. So the first route I can do will be red buff into golems into raptors, which would be A, B, C into my left side jungle. This is a lower tempo clear, right? And what this essentially means is I'm going to be clearing my jungler, or my jungle, a lot slower. And so I won't be able to influence lanes immediately unless I do A into B into C into top lane. But that's not really beneficial unless it's needed, right? So this is the first route that I could do, which would be a low tempo clear. The next tempo, or the next clear that I could do would be a slightly higher tempo clear, right? And what this means is I could go into my buff. I could then go into blue, Gromp up into top lane. This essentially hits top lane and mid lane very quickly. And so I could be doing this type of clear as well. This is also an option, but I want to see, this is again all dependent on what's happening. Now, if the opponent jungler starts on the left-hand side, okay, let's say opponent jungler starts left side here. And let's say that I am on the right-hand side. So we have a right side, right? We have a right side start. Which this means, now let's assume that we don't have a ward here. Now, if we don't have a ward here, and the opponent jungler is a champion that can most likely invade very easily, then I do want to do a higher tempo clear, right? Higher tempo clear. And the reason for this is because if I end up going A into B into C, then I will be back on my left side jungle at a time when the opponent jungler can easily take my left side buff, which means that now I'm in a very awkward situation inside of the game. Because now if he opts to take my buff and then ends up taking even my Gromp and then runs back to his right side jungle, which is the only area where his camps are going to be available, I can't respond to that. Then what ends up happening is because you know that's the case, he knows exactly what my next clear routes are going to be, and he has complete timers on both my camps on the left hand side, okay? Or all three of my camps, depending on, you know, what he does. He most likely can't take all three of them. He'll mostly take like maybe one, maybe he'll have to smite the other and then run to his right side jungle. But this is only relevant when champions that can actually invade, you know, very easily, and if you don't have the vision here. This is essentially a defensive clear, although it is high tempo. High tempo clears can be used in defensive manners when we don't have vision, or if the opponent enemy jungler or mid laner or whoever ends up starting sweeper at level 1 and ends up denying this ward, or if your teammates don't simply place it because it is solo queue. Even in high elo, players won't do this for you. And so again, in this case, I wanted to play it a bit more greedy. I wanted to play a bit more safe. So I opted to go ahead and do A into B into C, where I end up doing a 3 camp clear onto the right hand side and then moving to my left side jungle, while again F keying and looking at all my lanes as I do that. And again, I do make a few misplays in this game. Again, I'm only a player. I'm only a master tier jungler, and so even when I play in diamond, I do sometimes make a lot of errors, and sometimes I even lose in diamond. So it's not like I can just 1v9 smurf every game. So I will make a good amount of errors here. Anyway, so I go ahead and smite the wait, why did I smite that? I think this is really troll. Oh, sorry, no. I smited the Gromp, or the Golem, sorry. I thought I smited red for some reason, like what? So right off the bat, right now, my eyes are just on the minimap. I just want to see who's coming into lane first, and we see that both laners came relatively at the same time. So now I'm thinking, okay, what would benefit Amumu the most? Maybe blue buff would benefit Amumu the most, maybe red buff, I don't know. So I'm going to assume that, you know, he can be anywhere, and I'm just going to keep looking at the map for more information. He could have started wolves, or he could have started raptors, and we don't necessarily know that, because we don't actually have a ward. One thing that I highly recommend players to do is, if you're against champions that are able to take these camps, like sometimes Rammus, for example, could do clears like this, into then, you know, doing the buff relative to whatever enemy jungle starts. And so if you are against a champion like this, warding their raptors instead of warding the river is always going to be a bit more information, just so you're, just so you're aware. Anyways, I don't really have enough information yet. By the way, I don't even remember how this game goes or how I pathed, because this was a bit ago I played. But anyways, so we ended up taking golems. I ended up resetting it. This is all really, really bad. It's okay. Anyways, we still don't really know where Amumu started, but again, I mean, this is pretty bad by me. I'm just looking at how my lanes are playing, and right off the bat, we can see that Morgana and Ashe are winning on wave 1, meaning that they can choose to do whatever they want with the wave. And the way I want you to look at the game is through these incoming waves that are, coming out of the Nexus. So right now, the next wave is just arriving, and I'm actually looking very closely at how my bot lane is playing the next wave. Does Ashe auto the next wave? Does Ashe bounce the next wave? Is Victor able to crash this wave, or does this next wave end up locking with Victor's current wave? And how is top lane playing out? All of these things can determine how Amumu can route, and all of these things also determine how I'm supposed to route. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, that Ashe ends up bouncing this wave and doesn't auto it. Then, right off the bat, I'm of the assumption that maybe Amumu started on Raptors and he's finishing his left side clear, in which then he's going to end up running back to his right side and be present for any form of a bot lane gank, okay? At that point, I'm a little bit scared, and then I would definitely make sure my bot lane is being spamming. And then let's say, for example, that, looking at mid lane, let's say, for example, that Victor ends up locking this wave with the next incoming wave. Then I know that Victor actually messed up inside of the lane, or maybe he's building a wave somehow against Jace, which to me is, it's just kind of beyond me that he can even do that. At that point, I'm going to take Raptors, and then I'm going to hover in mid lane while Victor crashes the wave, because if Amumu shows up, he can gank Victor, which then allows me afterwards, after Victor has crashed the wave, I can simply transition back to my blue buff and then Gromp, and then maybe look top lane, Wolves, or however else I want to path. If Victor is able to get a push going, and we know that Amumu's on the right-hand side, or maybe, you know, by chance he is, then I could also even go like this. I could take Raptors, I could hover, I could look for information, and I can run back to my left side jungle. If we run into Amumu, if top lane is pushing in, again, if top lane is pushing in, I'm definitely going to do this. If we run into Amumu, we can throw an Amumu out of his left side jungle and force him back, like on the other side of the map. And this also puts a lot of pressure on top lane. And if he isn't there, then I know exactly where Amumu started, because at that point he will start left side, and we know exactly where he's going to be, which will be on the right hand side, because we know that he can't actually just go into our jungle like this, and the only lanes he can really gank is maybe mid lane, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to have a good lane state relative to when the bounce back will end up happening, because as we discussed, this wave will push in. And then the only lane other than mid lane he can really gank is bot lane. And so then all I'm going to do is I'm going to spam ping bot lane, clear my left side jungle, and then if bot lane ends up locking the wave, I can recall immediately and then run over here for my level 4 golem camp, which will then respawn around, like, I don't know, like 4:30 or so, 5 minutes, 5:30, and then I'll be back onto the right hand side to defend bot lane. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and just take Raptors here. This is pretty good to do. And then I look at top lane and I see that Camille is building a wave there, and I do ping out that Amumu could be there, because this is the only area where Amumu may possibly be able to find a gank. And I can see that Ashe is constantly pushing in the next wave, as we see that she is, and along with Morgana, is continuing to bounce the wave. And here again, you see, I'm kind of hesitant. I'm looking at my mid laner. Well, I mean, I should be looking a bit more, but whatever. I'm looking at mid lane and I'm like, oh, okay, well, this guy is pushing in. Amumu could be here. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna like hover, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hover up top lane. Now, some people will disagree with me. They're gonna be like, oh, well, Zen, you should just farm your jungle. Well, if my laners fall behind, it doesn't really matter if I farm my jungle, because they're gonna lose the game. Because lane becomes really impossible for them to play. However, if I can waste a little bit of time but defend them and make sure they don't die and then take my jungle at a later time, I don't actually fall behind at all. And so now I'm pathing over to my left side. I'm looking at Scuttlecrab spawn, and I know that Amumu could be on the left hand side. And again here, I see that Camille is building a wave. A little bit risky, because I know that Amumu could be here. And right over here, I'm just kind of waiting for Amumu, right? Because I had assumed that Amumu is maybe looking for a gank, or a counter gank. So I go ahead and sweeping lens, and again, I'm feeling very comfortable. And I'm feeling very comfortable is because I know that, okay, well, it seems like this camp is gone. Meaning Amumu definitely started on the left-hand side and is most likely somewhere on the right-hand side and most likely taking Scuttlecrab. I then can see my bot lane. Maybe bot lane wave will lock, but that's fine, because if I can ping my bot lane, then it can end up maybe just walking away out of the way, and then maybe I can end up responding and helping them in, you know, in whatever way possible. So now I would assume that there may be a 3-man, maybe a 4-man bot lane play after this, if Jace chooses to shove this next wave and then roam down, because we know that this wave may actually end up blocking. But that's fine. There's nothing as a jungler that I can do about this. The only thing that's in my control is I need to be able to kill her inside of this wave and then deny her this giant wave that Camille is building, force her teleport out, let the wave bounce back into Camille, and meanwhile, while the wave in top lane is bouncing back, I would want to immediately then take my red buff, or my blue buff, sorry, my Gromp, or my blue buff, the Scuttlecrab, the Gromp, and then maybe hit top lane again, because the wave state will be in a very good angle at the time. Now, it's kind of beyond me how Victor ended up getting such a lane state against Jace at 3:30, but I mean, whatever, it happens. So, you know, we're just gonna kind of accept that, and I'm not complaining. Anyways, here I'm asking Camille to start the dive, because if Camille can eat aggro, because she does have a bit more HP than me, she can kind of dodge this way, and I can actually just kind of 3-shot Camille there. So Camille does end up taking it. I also want Camille to start it off, because I believe she does have passive up. And right off the bat, I'm gonna go ahead and just one-shot the Fiora with the 3rd stack on the E. and then I'm going to flash out because I do think that I would end up dying. And now, okay, so now I'm like, oh my god, okay, so I was actually wrong. It seems like Amumu started on the right-hand side, meaning he's back on the left-hand side, which is really strange to me. So I'm like, what the hell did he do? It's 24 CS. It's 25 CS. What the hell did he do? So it's 350. He must have gone something like 1, 2, 3, right side jungle, and then maybe recalled, and then ran up to top lane. Because his golem should respawn very soon. Right? Because if Amumu ended up taking his first buff at 130, let's say he started red, for example, right? Well, actually, I do think that Amumu most likely started left side because I believe that Raptors have now spawned. Which means that Amumu's initial route must have been A into B into C into the right-hand side jungle, which is a little strange. So, right off the bat, we can assume that if Amumu ends up finishing his first... If the first buff spawns at 130, as we all know, he would end up finishing the buff at about 140 around. Meaning what's going to end up happening is by 340 to around 415, his right side jungle should end up respawning. Which means that if Raptors are up around 350, we would most likely assume that his golems are also going to be respawning very soon, which allows me then to simply take my left side jungle and then beeline over to my crab. Unfortunately, I don't want to go over to the crab right now, because if I end up going to the crab, I'll end up losing my left side jungle. I'll be really off tempo, and then although I'll have my right side jungle to farm after I've taken crab and the lane may bounce back, it's not very efficient for me because I'm very low health, and on top of that, I will end up losing efficiency inside of the jungle with my left side camps. Okay, so a little bit unlucky of a spawn there, but it's not a big deal at the end of the day. Anyway, so now I see Amumu coming in, and I'm a little bit worried because I'm like, okay, maybe this guy wants to fight me in my jungle, so I'm just going to be really cautious, and I'm just going to kind of sit inside the bush, and then if Amumu shows up, I'm just going to run away. And then I'm going to hopefully have Camille teleport in. Luckily, Amumu just ends up going for crab. That's why you see me hugging the wall. I'm not really kiting. I'm kind of afraid of Amumu. And we know that Amumu most likely is now going for the right-hand side crab, as we see him doing exactly. And again, I'm very happy here because he can't really go into my Raptors. And I see that my bot lane is recalling, so I'm very happy, considering that Amumu can't do anything anywhere inside of my jungle. So right off the bat, we know that top lane is bouncing back. I know that the left side crab is up. Now I get double crabbed. Sorry, left-hand side crab is gone. I get double scuttled, but that's completely fine because I end up getting my laners ahead, and on top of that, I have a very good lane state in top lane. So again, I'm just going back up to gank top lane here. I know that she is most likely going to die, and we're just gonna go ahead and W. Bit of a awkward play, but we end up blowing her flash, and top lane is also bouncing back. So now Camille actually just wins the lane. Now if Camille ends up recalling here, right? If Camille just ends up recalling here and then running back up to top lane, or even if Camille just holds the wave here, Fiora can't really do anything, right? Because Fiora ends up, well, I think she has to recall here and then come back to lane. What ends up happening is now Fiora doesn't have flash and Camille has a very good lane state. And by the time that Amumu is back on the left-hand side, as we see that his golems are respawning, Amumu can't really do anything up into top lane. Now, the only thing Amumu can really do is maybe go into my Raptors, but, I mean, this is where I would end up spam pinging Nautilus to maybe just, like, hover. If, you know, maybe Nautilus can go like this, but I don't know. It's kind of risky here, because Amumu can be on my right-hand side jungle. Anyway, so I end up hitting top lane, and now here I am going to go into Amumu's left side jungle, because I know that Amumu's probably in my right side jungle. Right, so immediately I go ahead and hop over the wall. This is also partially to see Fiora, if I can maybe catch her out again, and then chunk her out. And then I go ahead and end up taking the golem from Amumu, knowing that Amumu is on the right-hand side jungle, and I know that the only routes he can most likely do against me would be maybe he could take Dragon, which doesn't really benefit him. Maybe he would take my 2 right side jungle camps, which I don't really care too much about, because I am still getting top lane ahead. Anyways, so I go ahead and finish golems up. I'm looking at mid lane again, and I see mid lane is crashing in, so my route could look like something like this, where if Amumu ends up doing my Raptors, if Jace is building a wave, maybe Amumu and Jace end up diving into Victor, which then I immediately want to just path over like this and try to defend this. And then on top of that, I also want to look at bot lane. If bot lane is pushing in, which they are, by the way, bot lane is pushing in, then I also want to be able to do something like this. Maybe I can, like, pressure gank the mid laner here, which would essentially me being, this is essentially me just walking up to Jace and trading like 40% of my HP for 40% of his, which would then allow Victor to have a really good lane state, check on my Raptors, and then maybe path down to try to defend this, recall, and then run back up to my wolves, and then possibly my respawn golem camp, or my gromp camp, which then aligns me to then hit top lane again. So these are all things that I can think about inside of the jungle. Right here, I'm just looking for his Raptors because I assume that his Raptors are up. But I'm also afraid because I'm like, okay, if this guy doesn't gank bot lane, then he's maybe on his Raptors. And if he's on his Raptors, I die because Jace collapses on me. So I go ahead and take the safe play. I don't really want to risk it. And I end up just getting Noon Quiver here. And I run back to bot lane. This is most likely all gone. And I see that Ashe and Morgana are playing very aggressively inside of bot lane, and I just want to be down there to try to help. And at this point, I'd assume that Amumu is most likely around his left side jungle if he isn't already clearing, if he hasn't already killed the dragon, or, you know, maybe he's like delayed on his clear or whatever. So when I see this up, I'm like, okay, well, this guy probably doesn't know what he's doing. And I see bot lane fighting. And now, because bot lane is fighting, I don't want to actually go ahead and, I don't want to farm. I just want to go ahead and kill bot lane here. Play it really slow. Unfortunately, my Vigar dies, but it's okay. And then I know that Amumu can't really be here. As we see, Amumu is on the left-hand side, top lane. And I go ahead and just wait for my Q auto, and we go ahead and kill Morgana. And now here, I see that the wave is kind of awkward. I don't really know if I should... I mean, I think shoving it is okay here. So here, I just want to shove it quickly. Get it on the tower. Notice that now this wave will end up returning back into my laners. And I could also go into my Scuttle Crab here, or not my Scuttle Crab, sorry, my Mark here. However, I'm kind of afraid to do that because I know that with this guy recalling and my mid laner not on the map, the enemy bot lane will end up arriving before my bot lane arrives. And if Amumu ends up, I mean, Amumu is like somewhere over here, or maybe he's on my left side jungle. If I end up going like this, I'm going to end up having to 2v1 their enemy bot lane, which will then force me out of my jungle, and then I'll be really delayed on when this lane will bounce back. So now all I'm really thinking is, okay, top lane can't really be ganked. The guy's already quite ahead. Amumu's ganks don't really align with the top lane's lane state, because I know that top lane will end up pushing back by the time Amumu's on the right-hand side because the left side camps are gone. Maybe Amumu countered my Gromp, but I don't really care about that because I'm going to be back on my right-hand side by the time this bot lane is going to press back into us, which means that now Amumu is forced to try to defend. And now we're going to basically 3v3 down in bot lane, but I know that we win this, so it's like advantageous for me. Not to mention my Victor is playing it pretty well because he's constantly getting lane states that are kind of favorable for him against Jace somehow. And so I'm pretty confident that even my mid laner will be able to have first responses against any fights that happen down in bot lane. So I go ahead and take the Golem camp, and I'm not really looking for a recall here. Maybe I could have. I'm not really sure. I'm not really like too... good with the itemization yet, so I do sometimes forget how much something is worth, and I kind of just end up over farming a little bit, but doesn't matter. We end up taking red buff, and we assume that Amumu will be down here very soon, and all I'm looking for is again a bot lane play because we know the wave is bouncing back, and again we see that they're fighting, and this is just nonsense. And here I'm just looking for a just a fight. I end up dodging. I mean, or she misses. I don't know. I end up getting away with this. And now here, I wouldn't want to shove this wave. I don't want to shove this wave. And I think that Vigar should just go ahead and recall and then return back to a really good lane state by the time Amumu is back onto the right-hand side jungle. And now what I want to do right after this is I can just take a recall. If I just take a recall and I don't do dragon and I run back up to left side, this aligns me with possibly getting onto top of Amumu's red buff. Because I don't think Amumu will immediately be there to take it. And we can also be around Rift Herald, along with our camps on the left-hand side, along with Crab. But the main important thing as to why I want to be on the left-hand side, because my lane states don't favor how top lane is playing out. And if Amumu does end up showing up into top lane, I want to be able to immediately recall and then run back up to top lane to try to defend this. And if I can do this and we end up winning the 2v2 up in top lane, the game just simply ends, because at that point, it's just over. So now I'm retaining my advantage while simultaneously protecting my laners and trying to be as efficient as possible while farming inside of my jungle. Going into Raptors here wouldn't really be beneficial, because if I ended up going into Raptors, I would be forced to be on my left side jungle, which then I would have to path there, and that doesn't really benefit me, because then I don't have the itemizations to possibly win a fight if Amumu does end up getting a decent recall on me, because I can't just assume how mid lane may end up playing out. Anyway, so we run up top lane, and right here I see Camille recalling, so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that doesn't really matter anymore, because, you know, she's resetting. And I'm just hitting the plants here just to see where Amumu is. I think that he's up here somewhere. And Here I'm looking at mid lane. I would like to chunk out mid lane and then path into my Raptors, because I know now that Amumu is most likely pathing towards his right side jungle soon. And here I just end up eating some CS, because, you know, Victor, whatever. I know that this wave is pushing in. Now here I could have even, debatably, I could just jump in and try to fight him, but I don't really know where Amumu is, so I'm a little bit hesitant. And I just go ahead and path back down into bot lane. This could, now this is a bit weird because I end up doing Raptors first. This is, I'm going to go ahead and probably say it's a misplay. I didn't think that their bot lane played so poorly, so I kind of just went ahead and continued to take Raptors. This is not a good idea. I was quite surprised that Ashe kept playing so far up, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess taking Raptors was actually just a mistake. You know, because like she's just I don't know what they're doing, so I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I'm gonna finish it now, and then I'll run down there. But this was a mistake by me, a little bit of an error. I have no reason to take Raptors because I don't really level up from them. And the way the bot lane is playing, it's too easy for me to just go down there and simply look for a gank. Anyways, after this gank goes off, I think I end up just being 7-0. Anyways, we kill Ashe, and then I should have used a potion, and then we end up also catching Morgana out. And now we're just gonna shove the wave. And then now I could possibly look to do a lot.